today because we have some audience, and that's great. Some people are interested in what we want to talk about. Yeah, also thanks for Trusted Seed for the great organization of this panel, for the support, but also, of course, congratulations to this huge and massive Unconference. It's been like a month or so, hasn't it? Wow, amazing.
Thank you so much. It's our first try, so we see a lot of space for improvement. But without guys like you, Felix, initially, like Crypto Commons was like an inspiration for this. So we should thank you as well.
Okay, so just like maybe we wait a minute or two more, but just a general outline on how I thought we could go about this today is that first we give some context, some introduction to the individual projects, where we are in terms of building our individual community hubs. Maybe also, like, if you want, give an outline of the next season, of next year, of things to look out for, and then really for me the question, as given in the description for this panel, is really how do we make connections between physical spaces that persist? And I think connections persist if they have meaning and are more than just an expression of we like each other. Like, there has to be some value that comes from maintaining connection. And I think especially with physical projects, that's quite challenging, because often then you have the problem, okay, well, what physical material, be it people, be it goods, travel between our spaces? How, let's say in the long run, we might envision a network all over Europe or even wider, that is so dense that you can really have significant material flows between spaces, but we're not there yet. I think at least we at the Commons Hub are struggling to build somewhat of a local network of sourcing food locally and providing some value to participants in our local or nodes in our local network. And I think it gets much more challenging when it's not just the villages around you, but hubs in other countries. And so, but I think, are we good? Are we good to start? Cool. Well, as I'm already talking, I might just start by introducing the Commons Hub briefly. So the Commons Hub is an old countryside in 1 hour south of Vienna in Austria, and that's at the foot of the Austrian Alps. So that's the east side of the Alps, where the Viennese plains end and the Alps begin. The first mountains rise to more than 2,000 meters altitude, and you already have somewhat mountainous climate, but it's still quite well connected by public transport to, for example, the airport. And just to understand, the nearest towns are Vienna, Graz, which has about 400,000 inhabitants. Vienna has 2 million. And then there is Bratislava, also not too far, which has about, I'd guess, 1 million people living in the area. So you have quite some towns and cities around for local and regional participants coming there, but mostly we are geared to international audience so far. And we, so the organization operating the hub is the Crypto Commons Association. We have been around for about 2 years, and we started out as building bridges between academia, social sciences, and crypto, and shifted more away from academia because that's well, challenging and exhausting, more to building the hub and envisioning the hub beyond crypto as a space of exploration of new technologies and an experimental playground, if you want, of emerging technologies that might bear potential to overcome capitalist relations of production and valuation. And so what we're doing more concretely at the Commons Hub is that we're starting our permaculture garden. We started this year, and we want to spend much more time on that next year and in the years to come. We want to shift from purely events-based activities to more long-term stays. We're working on an artist residency program that will bring people to the hub for something between a month and 3 or 4 months, and should result in, well, actually it's not just arts, we call it artist residency is what you would know. It's a creative minds residency if you want, but there should be, after an artist or a creator leaves, there should be something that stays with the hub and improves relations there or the experience of the hub altogether. We're also, in terms of emerging technologies, we're exploring automation of some, especially in agriculture. So we are, I don't know if you know the FarmBot. That's an open source technology that is being developed as an automated field management system, from sowing seeds to terminating weeds to watering, and in the end telling you when a fruit is ready for harvest. That's something that we're interested in. Mushroom farming, that can also be partly automated, or actually requires some automated control of parameters. But then also other aspects of this, some more serious and some more playful. Like we're building a 3D clone of a digital clone of the house. So that would be our take on the metaverse. And to be honest, we have no real idea where this is like really useful, except for hybrid events and such. But it's more of a challenge than help so far, and it's a a a project that you can pour endless energy and money into, and so that is like on the more experimental and yeah, well, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a troubled child, this project, and I don't know really much what to say of that. We had more expectations, but then other projects are much more geared to immediate usefulness, like building a fab lab, building a proper workshop with equipment. And that is also something that we want to offer to the local surrounding, just having tools, having machinery, having a 3D printer, and having people that know how to operate these machines. And going towards, it could be a bike kitchen that we want to set up, could be helping people to design and print stuff on the 3D printer, or letting them use machinery that we have. So that is, I guess, would be a reasonable local flow of material services, if you want. Same as the mushroom production, which only makes sense. Like right now, we have this question: once you start it automated, you will have like 5 to 10 kilos of mushrooms every week, and you can only eat so many mushrooms. So what do you do with the rest of them? Well, you search for local restaurants, or whoever would have an interest in that, or you team up with people in your area that want to contribute some work and take home some mushrooms for that. But these are all just connection points. And well, before I ramble on forever, I will just briefly cover plans for next year, and that might be interesting to some of you. So we are doing a bunch of events next year. First one will be Solarpunk Now. That's in the spring, when it's time to prepare the fields, sow some seeds for the new season. It is a combination of a refi Unconference and permaculture workshop with integration of some agro IoT. Then we do a refi founders retreat in the month after, in the beginning of May. that is geared really to ReFi projects that have been in the ReFi Founders Circle with ReFi DAO, and that might feel a need for a week of meeting up and intensely discussing their own projects and the wider space of ReFi projects. And we're having one event on games that's going to take place in the mid of June. All of our events are for 1 week each, by the way. One event on games, on collaborative games, discursive games. So it's non-competitive games that can also be used as a facilitation technique, I guess. And then we have the yearly Crypto Commons gathering in the end of August that basically brings together all these different strands of what we're exploring to one space of exchange and consideration of where the space or the blockchain for good space that we're all kind of participating in, where it moves to and where we want to see it in the years to come. And yeah, with that, I would like to hand over to Guido. Do you want to be next?
Sure. Well, I'm Guido, and I normally use the name Earth-based Soul, is how many people knows me. And I'm the co-founder of a project called Solarpunk Nomads. It's a new project. We presented it about 6 months ago in Gitcoin Grants, and we are a family team because it's a project built and carried on by myself and my son. And we developed this concept of Solarpunk nomadism a couple of years ago, between 2 and 3 years ago, doing an expedition in Europe to document climate change. My son is a photographer. And we started dreaming about using electric vehicles for nomadism and using new technology like Starlink to being connected always to the internet and recharging this vehicle with solar panel. So there is a new technology called printed solar panel. And so basically, we started to dream about that a couple of years ago. At the beginning, we thought we use the name cyber nomadism, and we started to envision a future of nomadic change makers. And then when we started to be active in the Web3 space, we renamed it as a Solarpunk Nomadism, and we presented to Bitcoin grants in June. It was a, let's say, success for us. We raised some seed money. We started to build, and with many things in the last few months. And specifically, we started to talk about Solarpunk nomadism and to involve other people in the process. We we're building a small community on Discord, and in September we launched daily Twitter Spaces during Gitcoin grants called Solarpunk Cafe. That they will start again tomorrow, next Monday. And what else? Recently, we built a group called Solarpunk Guild that focus on public good funding, and we meet once a week. We have a Twitter space once a week. Yesterday, we did a very interesting one on with people from Givet explaining their platform, and basically that's what we're doing. The way we build Solarpunk Nomadism is also supporting artists, and we built it last summer, the first exhibition on Solarpunk Nomadism with a few artists, and we did that online using Spatial. So it was a virtual exhibition, but quite a big one, and just to explore the concept of Solarpunk Nomadism. And let's say that we are really focusing on what's possible. And so in what we call the near Solarpunk, not the very future one. So we are very practical people. We are from northern Italy, near Milan, and we like to build things. And in our vision of Solarpunk nomadism, we introduced two more different concepts. The first one is called Solarpunk Safe Place. This in our vision when in the very near future, actually, there will be a network of places for these nomads, and that will stop for a while during their nomadic or semi-nomadic life during the year. And this concept was introduced last summer. We normally play with the concept, introducing it to our Twitter community, and to see, and it had a good, let's say, support. And recently, we spent a couple of months, that was October and November, looking for the first places where to develop a real Solarpunk safe place. And this was a project we did together with West DAO. So for a couple of months, we worked for them, and we explored a couple of regions of the Italian Western Alps, so Piemonte and Valle d'Aosta. And we visited 12 valleys, and overall we analyzed a couple of 100 places. We visited physically 50, and we shortlisted 14. And this was the focus of this project, was to identify potential places to be bought by West DAO, and specifically to explore the concept of a safe place. So places that will be more resilient in future when we talk about climate change. It was quite an interesting exercise, a very interesting exercise, and we wrote a report that will be that we start to share it in the next few weeks, and it helped also us a lot to imagine the future of our movement of Solarpunk Nomads, and how new places can be built in places that are more resilient to climate change. So basically, that's what we're doing. We're writing now a small book about the concept that we'll present in January for the new Bitcoin Alpha round. And that's it. So I'll pass to one of you two. Maybe to Sam.
I can go next. Yeah, thank you for the intros. Sounds like there's so much overlap with what we've been up to, and yeah, been meaning to build more relationships and ties. So excited to dive into this for the panel. So yeah, I am a founder of OASA, which is a Web3 conservation network. And we basically just got approved as of a few weeks ago, with all the final kind of legal setup after like a couple of years of kind of figuring out how to do that. OASA was started 5 years ago, and with the intention to basically build these spaces in nature where digital nomads, entrepreneurs, and creatives can get together and have a more connected and more regenerative lifestyle. And yeah, so far we've been exploring lands, I mean, initially in the US, in South Africa, in Greece, and so on. And then 3 years ago, landed on Portugal, and that really resonated as a place to get started because of its accessibility, because also the climate impact that's happening here with the whole Iberian Peninsula being at risk of desertification. So it's basically zones that need to be regenerated as soon as possible. Yeah, and so essentially what OASA is it's a network that enforces certain regenerative principles. So we wrote a kind of guide, we call it the Principles for Regeneration and Land Stewardship, which kind of details what kind of things you can do on OASA lands. So we operate very much like a natural park. We have rules that could be compared to what certain national parks have in certain nations. But we are empowering all of this through Web3 and enabling token holders to basically accelerate these economies and to scale the surface of regeneration that OASA is covering. And so currently we're building the first prototype. It's called Traditional Dream Factory, and it's a space in Portugal. It's a 25-hectare property. Well, it's actually 2 different properties that we are combining. One which has like an old chicken farm on it with 1,500 square meters of buildings that we're converting into this kind of Solarpunk hub. So it has like a co-working garden in like an indoor forest kind of thing that we're setting up. It's going to have a co-living space with 14 suites, 4 studios in a house. And then also, like a makerspace and industrial kitchen. And we already reforested about 1.5 hectares of land. And we're also tracking this reforestation through Open Forest Protocol. So being able to see, like basically our goal is to prove that we can build a regenerative lifestyle. So a lifestyle that actually creates like positive external externalities for the planet and for the local ecosystem. And so in order to achieve that, right now we're tracking, for example, the growth of our forest through Open Forest. So that will be mainly to track the growth of biomass, which is an indicator of how much carbon we're storing from the atmosphere. But then we're also planting a food forest, which provides a bunch of other benefits like food for our members, but also for natural species that roam around the land and so on. And basically we just got the token approved as a utility token. So the model that we developed is, we call it a conserve to live model, where the more tokens you buy, the more land we regenerate, and the more benefits you get as a member. And that just got approved. So basically we're going to be having a public token sale sometimes early next year. We have a private sale going on. And like the ways that we see this scaling and really having an impact on the planet is through replication. So everything that we do, we want to open source it and get other people onboarded onto the systems. So for example, the platform that we are developing, we're putting that into its own DAO, which is called Closer. And Closer platforms provides infrastructure for these communities that have a Web3 token, Ethereum based, to give them utility to the space so that the members are able to directly book their stay, and so getting a real utility out of their crypto tokens. So that's the first step, and so this is something that's becoming available to other communities. But then also all the social systems and how we are set up as a DAO, as a land-based DAO, because that's quite rare in the Web3 space. Still at this point, and basically we created this proof of presence mechanism, which is essentially bookings on chain, but it's also a measurement of how present a member was in this physical space. And through tracking that presence, we're also able to issue governance right based on how much time you spent in the village. So that's going to be a primary governance mechanism, saying that the more time you actually spend in the village, the more you get to decide how the village evolves. Which I think solves both a lot of things that didn't work so well in the DAO space. It kind of insulates us from like whale attacks and these kind of things. But it also solves things that were wrong in the more political and real world space. Like currently, if you have a residency in a country, you may not be able to vote for presidential elections, for example, because it's only when you're a citizen of that country that you can do that. We think that it's much more fair to just base it off how much time do you actually spend in each of these spaces, and then gives you like a progressive control over how those spaces are governed. And last thing I can maybe mention is that we also just wrote a book. It's called How to Build a Regenerative Village. It's spun out of a mastermind that we hosted with the folks from Liminal Village and Piratas del Mar and some other folks who are also believing in the Solarpunk dream. And they came over in September, over 2 weeks, and we kind of tried to lay out all the best practices in terms of how do you build community, and then integrating this whole Web3 piece into regenerative villages, which is like a very new component to this. And so that's available on treehousedao.us. And I'll pass it back to Felix.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Guido. I just thought that maybe I just want to ask the audience if is there anyone else that is building a comparable project that is looking to a place-based hub of sorts and would like to talk about that and join us on the panel? spontaneously, or also does anyone have questions yet? Well, if you still do, and okay, there was someone, Max. No.
Yeah, I haven't prepared, to be honest, like for the deep dive in the panel, but and I also I'm a bit connected to the hubs in a way, because I'm representing Trusted Seed, and Trusted Seed is part of this thing called Give It Galaxy around the Give It project, and also I'm a nomadic Ukrainian, and this year I used to switch lots of places and lived in some of these hubs, especially like this hub, and trying also to put my head into how to make sustainable work of those, because still I think many of those places are underfunded, you can say. And I'm also currently in this space now, like in Indonesia, Bali, called Artist in Residence, which is also like an interesting example of artistic community coming together, and it's more like focused, I think, on renting. But yeah, besides that, also super inspired by permaculture. That's 3 words from me. Thanks.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, so but if anyone has questions, please don't be shy and just interrupt. But I think I'd like to go really to the main questions that are bugging me in designing or in thinking about our hub as a node in a network. Because I don't know how you guys feel that, but very often we have these thoughts about potential collaborations of sorts, more formal or less formal with others, and then we all agree in a moment of inspiration, and then contacts die down because both sides are too busy. And at the end, often it feels like actually this was a loss of energy, because you put in quite some energy in the beginning, then you don't have it to sustain it. And that's what I wanted to introduce in the beginning, that problem for me, that while networks are not dense yet, it's hard to build them up. And Max, if you remember, during the CCG, the Crypto Commons gathering this year, was it during the gathering? Or was it during? I'm sorry, I'm mixing up events maybe, but I think it was during the gathering. We had this question of do participants want to see the hub as a node, as a chaotic node in a network of hubs, or I mean, the other side was a closed cult, a closed sect of sorts, which maybe was not the right framing. Everyone said we want a chaotic node network, and maybe the other side should have been a very self-centered, strong core that takes care of itself before opening connections to others. That's maybe more what I meant back then. But then, yeah, everyone was hating on the cult vision. So I didn't quite get to develop it there further, but especially at least in our internal operations, I just see the need so much to first focus on our own development before being able to meaningfully sustain connections with others. And yeah, so I spun up this panel also to come to some ideas about how to find a middle ground. Sam, how do you guys deal with this? You've been around for much longer, and I see you nodding. So I guess you have had some of these same challenges.
I mean, maybe you could reframe your question to be specific, but also I feel like can also explore for me the vision of the future is having all of these nodes and then having them interconnected. And I kind of like to work from the 2050 vision of the world. That's where we started with OASA. It's with a backcasting, projecting ourselves in 2050 and looking at what does living look like. And we had the same kind of ideas, you're gonna have Starlink. That means that you can just work from anywhere, and that was back 4 years ago that we did this, and now it's actually available and we can have it in Portugal. But you have all of these other technologies that just empower us to live where we want to live, basically, rather than where we have to live because of some kind of work condition. Mainly, I mean, there's a bunch of other reasons. But yeah, and then for me, like what I've been seeing coming up more and more last year, and something that we can chat about now because I guess it's about building those relationships between those different nodes, is like I think there's going to be sailboats connecting all of these spaces. It's already happening. I don't know if you're familiar with ocean nomads, for example. That's one example. Piratas del Mar, who came to our mastermind, they're looking to also buy like a tall ship and start basically like a community on the water, so we'll be traveling from space to space. Something else that's been coming back is actually like sail cargo, because the cost of transportation has been skyrocketing with the cost of the energy. So you've actually seen like some projects that are bringing back traditional sail ships, because when you're transporting cargo, like the time is not so much of a constraint. And if you can use free energy to transport your goods around the world, then actually that's much more efficient. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of these like alternative kind of transportation solutions, and same thing for humans. I think over time we're going to come to value much more having like an amazing experience with a crew of people that that you want to be part of, just like in the villages where you are, instead of hopping on a plane for a few hours and ending up in a new context. I think taking like that journey as an adventure and as something that's part of the lifestyle, I think that's something that's way more exciting as a future, and that I would love to see. And we had a little bit this vision for OASA to have sailboats at some point, but I would love to just collaborate with all the other networks out there and just see how we can actually accelerate that. And just like, again, it's like, I guess, reaching a certain size in the network so that you can scale it and make it actually useful. But yeah, just having like these Solarpunk villages all over the globe that are connected with sailboats. That's a little bit my vision.
Cool. Very cool. I'm a trained sailing teacher, so I'm looking forward for this fleet of sailboats connecting maritime spaces, at least, right? I guess that like we've been talking about having hubs dense enough that you can bike around with bicycle, because then you can't really go further than maybe in the Alps, maybe 100 kilometers per day would even be challenging. And that still needs some time, but maybe Guido, that for until we are there, maybe you could tell us more about solar-driven RV homes or cars, trucks that you started out thinking about, right?
Yes, and well, we are really waiting the arrival market of the technology of the printed solar panel, because they are testing it now. They did a very interesting test last 3 months, and in Australia, they travel all around Australia with the Tesla printed with fueled by or charged by printed solar panel. So you stop in a place, you need a lot of sun, you open your printed solar panel, they come in rolls, and you wait a few hours, you recharge the battery, and then you go. That's the concept. But they are not yet in the market. The EV van are coming, they are already in the market, still very expensive, but can be bought. So this technology, let's say, will be fully available probably in a couple of years. And I think that the nomadic lifestyle will be much more common, specifically also as a way to, for new generation, is a new way of, is a new lifestyle that can allow you to have places where to stay without spending too much and without having a loan for 40 years. And also because I'm a biologist actually, and I noticed that the most resilient species are the species that are able to migrate, and this is a lifestyle is quite common in nature. And so consider where we are. We are in northern Italy, not yet in the Alps, in the pre-Alps, and say that these places, of course, are livable, but are pretty awful now in some period of the year. So probably now the summer from June to September are pretty tough. So you have to stay close in house, and if you have not a recent house, probably you have to use air conditioning, and basically you stay close inside all day. So what I'm saying that very often many people will start to have a nomadic or a semi-nomadic lifestyle, also to improve their life quality. Because, for example, in the summer you can go just for 3-4 months, move more north, and this will be chosen by many people, in our opinion. And concept that something that I wanted to share that you were talking about how to keep alive your community when you have very good contact when you have an event, but then you lose these people. And in my opinion, that's very important to, like for friendship, it's like having, you have to structure something like at least a weekly event where your community can meet and can keep a bonding. Because otherwise you have a very, very good contact, a very good relation, but then you lose it. So what I learned somehow as the similar concept you use with your online contacts. I'm in contact with hundreds of people all over the world, but the people I'm bonding more are the people that I meet at least once a week, because this repetitive contact makes the bonding. And then from the bonding started the collaboration, you support each other. You have also the quality of the bonding of you like them. You really look forward for that meetings because you meet friends actually. And then maybe one day you will meet them in real life. So I think it's very important for an organization to have this kind of, specifically if you have the chance of doing in real life event, a structure inside something like that, a reason why people can meet at least once a week. And the once a week is not, you can be a Twitter space or whatever, but this will help you a lot. We are applying this concept. I go into detail, but I think you can be interested because for Gitcoin grants, you need to build a community. And normally everybody build a community during the grants and then lose it for the next 3 months because it's difficult to understand who is donating to you through Gitcoin grants. So what we are doing now, try to bond more with our community because some of them are joining Discord. That's great. But some other, we try to bond with them using Twitter. So we built a new project Twitter space and we follow back only the people who are supporting us. Because in the relation, you also have to give. So you have to invest sometimes in looking what they're doing. So it's not only pretending that we meet once a week, you come to me, but you also have to come to them. Because in this way is the real connection. So, but we are still playing with the concept, so it's a bit too early. Back to you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think one great example of recurrent coming together of different place-based projects that then mostly learn from each other and learn together is the Region Civics Alliance. Or I think Sam, I've seen you there as well, right? Yeah, for us, unfortunately, it's one of the get-togethers that we joined for a couple of times, and then we're just too stuck in our own flood of operations to continuously come there, but as I experienced this group, it was a very ambitious and well maintained group of projects, all struggling or facing similar challenges. And these are from legal to economic to internal rules and whatnot. But I think that Sam, you've been there for longer. I think people stay there and come back. I had the feeling that this provides real value for all the participants.
Yeah, I mean, I think Reiki has done an amazing job with Regen Civics as kind of trying to also document this whole space. How do you become a Web3 village? And they've been obviously like also supporting with trying to deploy HiFi out to communities, providing that. But I mean, I think it's like such an emergent new space, like Web3 regenerative physical spaces. And however we can connect these spaces, I think it's going to be super fruitful in the future. And yeah, Regen Civics was one of those hubs and interactions that I think rallied like a lot of the promising projects around the world that are coming out and that are kind of pioneering this vision of a regenerative future using the power of Web3. Yeah, I mean, the mastermind that I mentioned that we hosted was a good example of that because we basically had the local projects like Liminal Village, who are also part of Regen Civics. They came over to us, and it's also part of their vision of the Regen Civics to have these kind of festivals every year. I forget what they call them, some kind of Regen Civics festival. And they just hosted one at the Regen campus, for example, in the US, where Reiki is now starting one of these place-based projects. And I mean, it's also very much a vision that we had when we started Rebuild. The Rebuild is a gathering for people building regenerative villages, and yeah, it's just like a nice way to get in touch with other people who have the same crazy ideas and bounce off suggestions on how to do it. Actually, even before Rebuild was born, we were hosting these thing called the Eco Living Federation calls, where it was a bunch of us who were starting these kind of projects around the world, and we would literally just like pitch each other's models and so on for how we were doing things. There was a lot of talks about co-ops, a little bit of talks about crypto and these kind of things. But I think just being in a kind of cohort with other founders that are starting similar projects is super useful, and also like shifting from competition to collaboration is also like a key aspect of this. I was actually supposed to be on a call with Dakota from Co here just now, and yeah, they have been also like doing something quite similar to what we have been envisioning with OASA, where it's a bit more security focused and focused on the US and with spaces around Central America. But we had a panel actually with both Reiki and Dakota during the Rebuild Online in 2021, which was about creating collaboration in the network. And I think that's the power of these Solarpunk economies that we're building around the world, is that they need to interact and they need to be beneficial to each other. And we have a common objective, which is the regeneration of the planet and creating a civilization that doesn't fuck up biodiversity and things like that. So when you have this kind of broader perspective, and it's not just all about increasing your bottom line, I think it just enhances our potential for collaboration. And yeah, Regen Civics is a great example of that. And I guess one project to mention within Regen Civics is this idea of creating a regenerative land trust fund or something like that. Like, I mean, Regen Civics itself is a DAO that could potentially purchase tokens of all of the projects that are involved with it. And so it's just this idea of how do we create incentives for the projects to support each other and to just participate in this network and to share resources, to share knowledge, to share human capital as well, and being able to just drive people to go from one place to another. So I'm super excited to see just this unfolding more and more in the future. And and Refi Spring is also, I guess, another example of that. Like, you guys hosted every Refi Spring, we hosted every Refi Spring, and Refi Spring is just like the more contextualized. It was in the Web3 and regenerative space. But I think these events are really what can bond the community together and bring people to discover these space-based places. And I think it's a bit of our role to tell the story of how do you build regenerative spaces and inspire others to do the same. And these events and accelerators and networks, they're all here just to support that vision and to share the dream and make more people step into it and just transition into this new society.
True. Do that. I just remember that in the last year, in this year, in our first year of operations, 3 future hubs were mentioned to me that are now in different stages of ideation or already a bit further. So my colleague Julio is planning a commons hub in Grenada, then Rock Kranich from Futurescraft figured that he would use a house of his parents in Slovenia, north of Ljubljana, and repurpose it as a hub of some sorts. And then also Elias, an artist in Austria, is intensely thinking about an amazing place in Salzburg in the Austrian Alps. And I look forward to supporting each of them in walking along similar paths and building a denser network. As I am excited to learn more from you guys, Sam. As you, as I mean, we still have a long way to go to join, for example, a DAO where we would exchange tokens, because we have kept that whole tokenization issue far from us until now, because there are always more immediate things to figure out and still so much uncertainty that we don't want to lock down prematurely. But I hope at some point we will be there. One thing that in terms of material flows that I've been looking into is creating energy communities or joining energy communities and sharing energy across spaces. So there is an EU guideline, I think, that invites or forces obligates EU countries to allow energy communities, to enable energy communities in national law by 2021. Now, 2022, Austria was the first country to actually implement that, so just 1 year late. That's great. Since October, in Austria, you are allowed to operate energy communities, and there are 2 versions of that. One is a local energy, is a renewable energy community, where you can trade all kinds of energy, so not just electric energy, but also heat and well, I guess that's it. But they have to be renewable. And for the energy, for non-local ones, it is basically you can use whatever accounting software. We are going to use 7Energy, a blockchain-based accounting backend that allows you to purchase energy directly from amateur producers of energy, or vice versa. So you can be purely consumer, purely producer, or something in between. Like during your peak, you sell to whoever is in the network and wants to buy for your price. And well, if someone else can store, for example, with be it with batteries or also with an electric car, which you can also use to ramp up your storage capacity. Might be able to sell to you at night or whenever you need. So this is, I think actually that could be, because the plan there is to get to a European, Europe-wide or EU-wide energy community, because the larger one of these non-local energy communities is, the more even the market would be spread, and the more deeper liquidity there would be in terms of energy. So the ideal would be to produce the energy wherever you produce most of it, right? And distribute it to places, to your network of hubs. That could be one. You still have to pay for network, you still have to account for loss over distance, but I think, so basically, as you can cut out the middlemen of big energy producers that now buy very cheaply and sell it on much more expensively. That is, to me, a great example of material flows.
Powering off.
More again, all of the audience to join our conversation if you like, if you have questions, if you have contributions of all kinds, please feel free.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm Pedro Prussia, and I'd like to introduce another emerging refi hub. Before that, a quick intro about myself. So I've been working with DAOs for about 5 years, but before then I was already, I come from background
Powering
of
on.
environmentalism, activism,
Charging battery.
public health. And recently, I joined a
Charging
UNESCO
battery.
board for sustainability here in Brazil, where I'm based. And I am right now in the physical space of this joint office. And we just hosted a 4 days event with a few hundred people in person and a few thousand remotely. This is an event that I believe it's the 3rd edition, celebrating Brazilian creativity and entrepreneurship. And now, paired with the event, we had the UNESCO opening. And now that this physical space is becoming more than a celebration of creativity, we also want this to be a celebration of regeneration through, among other things, technology. In other words, starting this week, there is a huge, beautiful space in this island in the northeastern coast of Brazil that is bound to become a refi hub. I'm gonna share the link here. We would love to connect with each and every one of your hubs. We want to be part of a network. Even though we are physically on an island, we don't want this organization to be an island. And we would love to have support on how to best design the transition of this already thriving network to Web3, or to at least leveraging to some degree the Web3 and the refi stack.
Awesome. And yeah, I also saw the comment from Evian, is that your name? About having spaces in the. Oh, yeah.
My name is Ivy.
Hey. So yeah, wondering about the spaces in I guess in the global south. And yeah, I think the answer is like it 100% needs to happen, and I'm actually like super excited to see how it's gonna work out in Africa and Brazil. You have some communities, for example, that are starting to have easier access to money through crypto. For example, on Celo, the networks that we're deploying onto, they have these resellers spread out across villages in Africa where you don't even have banks or anything. So being able to organize and coordinate regenerative action through blockchain in these remote zones and in the rest of the world that hasn't been so deserved yet. I think that's 100% going to be the place of expansion for all of these projects and regenerative hubs. And yeah, I mean, I think I would love to personally support like some of these projects, and we're eyeing with OAS are we going to be looking at. I mean, we had already looked at South Africa, at some potential lands, but we're also talking with some projects in Kenya at the moment who want to basically set up like Web3 powered conservation lodges. So there's, for example, like a sustainable safari project that we were talking with. They've been like, well, first like working on improving the sustainability of these kind of safari things by introducing electric vehicles and changing the energy supply and all that. But I think there's an opportunity to reimagine what conservation efforts looks like in a lot of these countries. So it's not just like fencing off whole areas and kind of bringing like the power. But I think if we bring the kind of more of a grassroots movement that's powered by Web3 and other technologies and enabling the people themselves to take back the control of the land and to actually incentivize a regenerative transformation, I think that's how we can really work at scale in these zones. And I mean, you also have a lot of projects in Brazil, in the Amazon and so on, for conserving those lands and issuing geo-based NFTs that can, basically just help support financializing conservation. And I mean, I think that's the whole purpose of the refi movement, is to give value back to living ecosystems rather than to dead ones. So yeah, I think I'm more than happy to connect with any projects down there.
I would like to add on the challenge of getting visa, which is there, and I mean, this is a hard challenge that we can't let's say circumvent. We can try to face it. We can try to consciously raise also funds for events, like always have some section of the budget going to support let's say intercultural exchange, if you want. Like there are plenty of things both sides or different localities can learn from each other. But it takes a conscious effort, I would say, because by default, like we were just having this debate in the planning of one event, a monetary event, that if we just keep it by default, it would by default be a very Eurocentric event, not least because traveling costs are high, visa demands are challenging, and frequently people that need visa also come from poorer countries where even just traveling costs, but also ticket costs and so on, in are relatively much higher than for Europeans. But yeah, I think it is likely worth it to take this challenge on and not just default into whoever comes and surprise it's gonna be in Europe just mostly Europeans and US Americans. I think that also for these kind of things, even though we usually don't like to look in these directions. Maybe there are also public funds that can be used. At least in Austria, I know that there are, and that we're exploring these. So, and that would also make the interaction with Visa much easier. I mean, with migration offices much easier. But it is a challenge that is that has no very easy answer, I think.
Well, I think that
might ask a question. All right. I was just I came in a bit late, so maybe I missed this already. But you're talking about wanting to help projects. What does that help look like? What did you have in mind? For example, like electric vehicles in the Philippines.
Not quite sure how to take your question, because this panel is about networking community hubs or Web3 villages, or all these variations of how you want to call them, and what exactly they specialize on. But Solarpunk spaces, we could call them, networking them, and well, I mean, helping a place on the Philippines with photovoltaic vehicles. Well, one thing for sure could be the contribution each village makes to global knowledge production, to templates, best practices, basically open sourcing how to do's. That to some degree help. I think more challenging are systematic funding channeled from one project to the other, because as someone said before, Max said before, all these projects tend to be underfunded. But of course, $1 in the Philippines goes further than $1 here for in Europe or in the US, for example. Kind of answers some part of your question.
I guess it looks a little bit blank. Hopefully my connection is coming through. But if I understand right, Felix and Driver, you two are kind of like together in this presentation or in this session, like co-hosting sort of, or is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I came in late, so I'm just catching up a bit.
That's fine. The three of us, Driver, Earth-Based Soul, and Felix Falafel, we are on the panel of this session. I guess I'm hosting, or yeah.
All right, sure. Well, I mean, I can at least just put my hand up and say I've been doing electric vehicles in the Philippines for about 7 years now. So I mean, the people that operate these vehicles or vehicles of a similar class to what we would be converting to electric are not technologically sophisticated. They don't like internet, like they barely know the internet outside of Facebook. So things like Web3, they're like like when I talk to them, their eyes glaze over. But when it comes down to like vehicles and energy and how much they're paying in fuel, yeah, they listen to that for sure. Yeah, so I mean that's something that I can say, at least from my perspective and from my experience here.
Charging battery.
I guess we could let me rephrase that question more broadly. How do these projects that we're talking about, how do Solarpunk, place-based Solarpunk projects reach out to the broader mass of people, or how do we bridge the gap? And how do we not stay isolated and isolated weirdos for most people out there? It's a good question.
Yeah. I wanted to add something about, let's say, this kind of hub, or regenerative hub, or Solarpunk hub in the global south, and because what is emerging from different conversation I had in the last few months is that there is a big demand for that, for building new hubs in the global south, and somehow it's going to be much more cost effective to do that because it's much easier. And specifically, it's easier because the regulation are less strict. If you want to build a solar punk hub in Italy, you need probably 5 years of fighting local authorities and with local regulation. And it's not something that's really supported by central government. You're becoming autonomous and do experimenting with new things. But in many places of the global south, it's easier because rules are not so strict and the potential are very high. So I would underline the need for us that to support group project to help them to develop even local hub. And this is, I think, it's probably much more effective that or better. It's something that we have to do together with what you wanted to do, trying to invite regularly people from the global south to the event in Europe or in North America. But I would stress that it's so important that we start thinking globally, as Sam is doing, and supporting other hubs in the global south. This, I think, is a great investment for our energy, our time, and we really helps a lot the regeneration process.
If this is David, if I could just jump in and maybe add to what Grail said. We're building definitely a place-based cooperative in Baltimore, and it's basically we raise impact investment to buy houses that are crumbling in really poor neighborhoods. We fix them up. We offer those construction jobs to folks in the neighborhood. And then we keep the properties in a portfolio that the workers own, and then the tenants own, and then other stakeholders in the neighborhood own. And then if you scale this thing, you've got a sort of a very decentralized vision for housing security and for wealth building. But similar to what Grail was saying, like the struggles to just get people who have lived in that kind of poverty for so long to show up and punch in occupies most of our day. So forget about trying to get them to put Firefox. I mean, a MetaMask on their phones, right? That's not a realistic expectation at this point. But at the same time, everything you guys are talking about and all of the promises of crypto to fund and to govern and to decentralize wealth and keep it decentralized would fit perfectly for this model. So that's it. I don't expect you guys to solve for that problem here. I'm just here to say that is why I'm on the doorstep, is to try to solve for this breach in a way that lets us start experimenting with some things at some point. And in the meantime, I posted that quote that I heard Kevin Iwaki share on a podcast.
I think
I'm done. Let's go.
I think that my connection is rather bad, so excuse me if I'm there's some disruptions. But yeah, to that question of how to get normal people to come to hubs, take inspiration from there. Don't start by talking about crypto. Like, keep crypto where it's supposed to be, in the back end. This is account. You don't talk to people about accounting that much, or it's not a topic that excites people. So why would you expect them to be extremely excited about the newest accounting innovation, which crypto more or less is, at least in most regards. I think, yeah, as Grail was saying, talk about what improvements it brings. If you talk about fuel and saving costs of fuel, yeah, that's when people listen. Not so much about the detailed technology behind it. Yeah, like for example, that energy community backend I mentioned, they use a blockchain for backend, but they want to keep crypto stuff out of reach of the users. So you have an app. That app accounts in euros, and sometimes you have to load new euros onto the app, or you load euros from the app to your bank account, and that's it. You don't need to know what's happening in the backend. Like even just that was the reason for us to rename our hub from Crypto Commons Hub to just Commons Hub. It just deferred so many people were like, I'm out. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I mean, first of all, I think it's amazing what you're doing, David. Like I think these kind of initiatives is what we need to see a lot more of, and putting, well, in this case, how homes back into the commons. I think that's, yeah, I mean, it's a powerful thing, and yeah, I mean, the platform that we're building, Closer, one of our objectives is that you have to spend the least amount of time possible on it. So I'm a bit actually curious to see if that could be applied to your model and your context. I mean, yes, you do need MetaMask, but it is like pretty much as simple as you could have it. Like it's basically just a simplified version of Airbnb, but where you can use your tokens to book your stays. So I would be curious to see if it would be possible to onboard those type of people. I mean, we're seeing the same thing in Portugal. The people that are coming to our space, they are not necessarily that Web3 native. But I feel like the learning curve for like just getting onto MetaMask and knowing how to do that is like relatively simple. So I think like as we are simplifying this technology and scaling it, yeah, I definitely think we should like not talk about it and not say like, oh, like it's you have to get into all of this crypto stuff, but just like make a simple interface that they can actually use with some very simple instructions. And hopefully over time, like it's gonna be easier and easier, and you're not really gonna see any difference between being in a Web 2 world or in a Web 3 world, and it's just gonna be booking something online.
Yeah, I would love to have that conversation with you. I think this what I come to say is there is a community that is building a shared wealth model that's in very early stages, but they kind of get it. Like they're rebuilding this stuff and they're getting paid to do the work, and now they own the stuff, and now they can watch how the stuff performs and creates wealth. And there's this really unique opportunity, I think, to build this from the street level the right way, so you can build what really works on the streets with this model, with this community, and then have conversations in the background. Like you said, nobody's going to say Web3 or crypto. We're just going to say, hey, you built this portfolio, it's 8 houses now, and you own X shares in that, and because you own X shares in that, you get this vote and this dividend, and this say as to what to do with the common space over here, right? So this is exactly it. If I can start having conversations with folks like you about, okay, we have this shared model that we think is a step forward for capitalism. How do we get technology that emboldens it? We can be slow and patient and pace it the right way and build it the right way.
Awesome.
I will. I'll find you on the chatter here, and we can talk offline, I hope.
Yeah, please do. I'll put my email so you have it. But yeah, Felix, I was actually curious to ask you like what what are some of the things that you guys are struggling with and what you need support with? Because I think voicing needs clearly is like the first step in providing mutual support. And we've been talking about doing this internally within our members, having this kind of one of our members wrote like a mycelium white paper recently, which is how Nspiral basically is functioning as well. We also hosted the Nspiral gathering in the summer. And what Nspiral is, or like the ways that they described to me when they came, was it's just as a network, a mycelium network where you can ask anything and the network will source that a solution for you, source a need. So I think, yeah, for creating more support and collaboration between place-based spaces, I guess the first step is just sharing like what are the specific needs, and then just sourcing that out to other hubs.
Thank you very much for asking. My connection broke up for a bit, so I guess the first thing is I need a better internet connection. But aside of that, one struggle that we're having is managing willingness to help by non-team members. So you know what I mean? Like often people are like, "Hey, I could help you a little bit with something," or I would know that there would be several people for some problem or challenge to ask for, and likely they would help us in terms of devoting some time to it. But then this alone is often so much of a management burden that it doesn't really happen, or that then like understandings and misunderstandings are so frequent that that there is so much friction in the end that you could just do it yourself, or you have at least that feeling of, I mean, I guess it's also a matter of the need for control, or the perceived need for control, and slowly getting away from that. So yeah, we're still very much in that. I mean, that is one of the challenges. Others, obviously, legal challenges of how to, and not obviously, but legal challenges of how to. I mean, that is a challenge that is coming up for the next year. We moved away from operating it as an Austrian association because we had some troubles there. Also, what we're doing at the hub really doesn't fit our statutes, the description of our association. If we do stuff that we are not that's not under our statutes, then we have to pay taxes like a normal, and yeah, a proliferation of legal questions, and legal, but then also leading into economic questions of how to structure a new company that kind of is required by law, because you don't have cooperatives in Austria like that, to be formally a for-profit, most likely, but then should be run like a collective internally. How do you deal with assets? How do you deal with investments? All of this is a huge question mark for next year, and I just have the feeling that someone has to have some answers for that. Like these would be, like, for me, glaring challenges that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess both of these is things that we spend a ton of time on. So yeah, happy to share more. I mean, maybe we can have another more specific call on it. But first one about like managing kind of volunteers and labor coming to the project. I guess I can just describe a little bit like how we are set up, because I think it's pretty unique and actually works really, really well. So there's kind of like different layers of
Charging
involvement.
battery.
You have the abstract layer, which is our social aquatic circles, which operate in the metaverse digital realm, not necessarily on the ground. So for example, we have a circle for permaculture, for legal, for tokenization, for like all of these different aspects. And so that's just a group of people, in general, like 4 to 6 people, who are part of that circle and put in some effort. And so that's people who are already committed to the project, and the minimum involvement is for a 3-month cycle. And we operate in 3-month cycles, and I think that is kind of like a key, is like having these cycles, so you ask for like a minimum amount of commitment from people. And then the second piece that we have is we have stewardships. So every 3 months we have a new team of stewards who are actually running the place on the ground, and they become the ears and the brain that connects to all of these other circles. So we have, for example, right now a land steward who is part of the land circle, so he has that broader knowledge. We have a team member that's a steward on the ground that's part of the community circles, so they have like more of an overview of like the whole social thing. And then one who is part of the construction kind of circle and has knowledge about that kind of field. And then the day to day, like we have volunteers. Everyone meets up at 8:30. We have a stand-up meeting with everyone, and that's when the stewards can then pass on. They have a list of priorities that they worked on together with the circles and so on, and then that gets executed on the ground. And then we just ask our volunteers to work like 3-4 hours a day. So you just work in the morning, and in the afternoon you're free. And I think that formula works pretty well, because you have, first of all, you're empowering the stewards who are like the managers. And they need to have the domain-specific knowledge for a certain area. I think that's like really crucial, having that kind of bridge from knowledgeable people who may not be on the ground, and then the volunteers who just want to provide some help. So I think you kind of need this management layer a little bit. Yeah, I guess that's like the quick version. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, quite much. I think our project is designed to be smaller than yours, right? We have 8 rooms with a total capacity for events of 20 stretch it, it's 25 beds, but like during like for longer term stays it's 8 people really, because you don't want to share your room all the time. But so like I'm not sure if we can have these like several stewards and then volunteers, but still yeah, like splitting things up into different responsibilities and different working groups or circles. That is something that is already happening in a way. I hadn't thought of the 3 months for each cycle, which I like, because then it prevents things from slowly dying out, right? And just taking on way too long, too massive projects that then feel like a huge burden, and then just everyone quietly leaves and it slowly dies down. That's a nice approach that I think could also help us like staying active and productive, and staying in a feeling of achieving things. It's not that, like, you know, we're generally well in good spirit. Like we've had the first year, which was challenging. Things are getting better and better. Basically, it's just yeah, there's still forests of question marks, like especially the legal part, but let's not go in there now. That's yeah, I guess I also need a better overview of Austrian laws for that, and plenty of other things. But yeah, thank you very much for offering your help. I will definitely come back to it. I'll just text you privately, and I look forward to that.
Sounds good.
Maybe Guido, can we help you on your project with anything?
Well, that's a good question. Let's say that we are still in a very early period, so we are learning a lot. We are connecting with a lot of people. And the team is very small because we are 2 people, and it's not our only project. We are doing other things. So we are still there, very in the preliminary phase of it. But already knowing that you are there is it's good for us, because maybe we can reach out. And yeah, and I think even this meeting is helping me a lot, because I'm learning a lot. And the way we are building is always trying also to support others, and trying to make things that a project that can help others as well, and as much open as possible. But we are new in this space, and so we are learning a lot. And so to answer your question, anything you can see in our project that can get better will be good to know, because sometimes when you build a lot, you're really focusing on what you're doing, and maybe people from outside see something that is so and so, but they don't feel like criticizing on that. But we love that. We love to know how we can improve, even if our communication works. Because we build it all, everything using Twitter and tweeting a lot, and trying to share as freely as possible, and trying to really feel the vibes also of our community. And we are very happy of that. But you never know how maybe other people can see it. And since we are new in this space, would be great to know if you see something that it doesn't work, can be improved. Just feel free to tell me even now, or just DM or whatever. This will be a great help. And on the other side, if we can help you, what we are already doing for some other project is helping them with the communication strategy, because even if we are not, let's say, seasoned marketing expert, but somehow we found easy to build a community on Twitter. We're coming from where we built it. The first project I did with my son was building a community of about 50,000 people on Instagram. That is still there. We are not using it much at the moment, because we are waiting some changes in our organization. But we already we built a community of about 4,000 people in my page. With the other page, around 5,000 to 6,000 people in 6 months, and pretty active with a very good interaction with people. So I'm already helping other groups, other projects to build that. Just using simple methods. This is our experience. So if we can help, just ask. And thank you.
Thank you. I'd be happy to provide feedback, and I'll keep it in mind when I see something that I think. Also, Guido, would you like maybe, and we can talk about it another time also, but would you like maybe to come to our first event in the spring? I think your like, if you would consider to come with your electric vehicle, with your truck, that could be extremely cool. Because we have been talking about nomadism as well already on our gatherings, and I think it could maybe throw a spark.
This will be great. I hope to be able to come with an electric truck, but I'm not sure, because we still don't have an electric truck.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, but
no, we use an off-road vehicle.
The car that I see on the pictures is not an electric one yet, no?
Yeah, is a diesel car. We bought specifically for our expedition, so we use only for that. We use a solar panel to charge the service battery, and we have a Starlink, but the engine is a diesel engine, even if efficient is a diesel engine. And we need that car because for some of the project we need to go off-road. For example, in this expedition we did for West, we spent several days in looking for property up in the Alps, going off-road, so we need that. But we are planning, we hope very soon, to buy a bigger vehicle, but electric, so an EV van. It would be great to come and visit you. Yeah. When are you doing this event?
1st until 7th of April.
Yeah,
So
quite
in
possible. We
in 4
may
months.
be on our way to Central Sweden because
Oh,
we need to do an expedition to Central Sweden for another safe place. So we'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
maybe that aligns. Great. Yeah, and I think how do you guys feel about closing the session? I think energy is getting low, or at least on my end. Yeah, then thank you all very much for attending. I'm sorry again for the time confusion, but I'm really happy that we had this session. Thanks also, thanks Ivy for organizing it all, and thanks for the audience that stick with us until the end. Hey, Umberto.
Yes, thank you so much for putting this together, Felix, and yeah, hope to see you soon in Portugal or in Austria or around.
Yeah, I
Nice
also
to
want to
speak,
talk
yeah.
to you about Portugal. I will move there in next autumn for
Oh, nice.
winter season, and yeah, I'd be very happy to stay at TDF at least for a while.
Awesome. Yeah, let's be in touch.
Cool.
Thank you so
Thanks, y'all.
much.
Thank
Good to see
you.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks
Bye.
for this
Bye
session.
bye.
Ciao.